All right, so in this video, I'm gonna teach 2-point perspective. All right, so as you can see, I'm in my sketchbook, and again, I have the binding of my sketchbook at the top so that my page is horizontal, so that you have the most room possible. And that's really important with this one because we're gonna make a cityscape with this one. So again, I'm not gonna use a ruler. I'm gonna show you how to do it with a piece of paper that's folded up. So, but here's what I'm going to do though. I'm going to fold up my paper kind of, let's say, short ways or hamburger ways, whatever you want to call it. So it's this size. And then I know I'm going to run into a problem later on and I'm going to need something that's longer than this. So then I'm going to turn my paper and I will fold it long ways so that I have two different options because I'm going to need something that's longer rather than opposed to something that's a little bit shorter. All right, so see how I have two different options? You don't have to do that, but I just know about what I'm about to run into. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to have your vanishing point. So with 1-point perspective, the vanishing point was in the middle. Well, this time, your vanishing point is going to be on the sides of your sketchbook or your paper. All right, so basically, see how I'm kind of like putting it here in the middle of my sketchbook? And then on this side, I put a dot, and then I go straight across, and I have a dot on this side. All right, so these are my two vanishing points. I have one, and I have two. Super important. All right. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to create, so with this whole project, you're going to create a city and a street and a sidewalk and buildings, doors, windows, signs. So you're going to create all of this on this little piece of paper. All right, so just like with 1-point perspective, whenever you draw lines that are going vertical or horizontal, you always want to line up your straight edge or your ruler to the side or the top or the bottom of your sketchbook or your paper. You always want straight lines. All right. And also a 2-point perspective is the lines that you're going to draw the most in 2-point perspective are going to be vertical lines and then a line that is going to a vanishing point. Okay? So if it's not one of these type of lines, then it's probably wrong. The only time that you're going to draw horizontal lines, these sideways lines, is when you're really close to this imaginary space. Okay? So vertical is super important, and then lines that are going to a vanishing point are what you're going to be drawing most. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line. I'm going to kind of put my straight edge here in the middle of my paper as best as possible. I've lined up the bottom of my straight edge at the bottom of my sketchbook, and I'm going to draw a vertical line in the middle. And see how when I drew my vertical line, I left space at the top and I left space at the bottom. That's really important. Okay, you have to do that. All right, so this line is actually going to be the corner of our very first building, and you'll see it evolve as we do this. So now I need to do the bottom of my buildings, okay? So from the bottom of this line, the only other option I have, I can't do this because that's horizontal. I can't do that. The only other option I have is to go to a vanishing point. So now I'm going to take the bottom of this line, guide my straight edge to my vanishing point, draw my line. So I go that way. And then now I'm going to go to the next one. I connect to my vanishing point, connect to the bottom of my line down there. Make sure it's really nice and precise. And connect. So some of you thought 1-point perspective was kind of tricky. Hopefully you think 2-point is easy. A lot of people think 2-point perspective is a lot easier than 1-point. So hopefully that works for you. So now that's the bottom part of my buildings. So before I keep making more buildings, we're going to make a sidewalk. Everybody's city has to have a sidewalk. So here's how we do it. So now I'm down here at the bottom of my buildings. So I'm going to drop down a little bit, like leave a little bit of a space and make another dot. So again, I don't really need to go vertically because it's not really wrong, but I don't really need that line there. And I can't go horizontal again because it's not going to look right. So what I'm going to do, my only option is to take this dot to my vanishing point. And I do the exact same thing. I draw my line. So what's happening is as lines are getting closer to the vanishing point, they're converging. They're getting really, really small, and they're going to like almost touch each other and get really tiny. Because technically you're standing here at the corner, and these vanishing points are the furthest thing away from you on this street, and you'll see it again. See how it happens. So now again, I'm going to go dot to vanishing point. So I go dot to dot. Make sure it's connected. Oops, kind of messed up a little bit. It's okay. I'm going to switch actually and use my shorter one. Okay, so now here's kind of like the top of my sidewalk. Well, now we need to make it look three-dimensional. We need to give it a little bit of depth, okay? Because right now it's flat. So now what I'm going to do, I'm still down here at the bottom, and I'm going to draw a little vertical line down, not too big. Try not to let it go off the sketchbook page because then it might not make sense. So I do this, and then again, my only other option is to go to a vanishing point. Can't do this because that doesn't look right. So again, I connect the bottom of this little line, and I connect my straight edge up to my vanishing point like so. And then these three lines are going to get really close together up there. They're going to basically be touching as they get up there towards the vanishing point, and that's okay. They'll almost turn into like one line when they get up there. And so again over here, I take the vanishing point, I make sure it's still connected to the bottom of this little line down here. Super important to always make sure and be checking that your straight edge is making sure these lines are going in the right spot. Because sometimes after we put our paper down or our ruler down, we don't realize it shifts a little bit if we're looking at one way. So you always got to come back and make sure it's looking right on both ends. Okay, so now we have our sidewalk. So hopefully it looks a little bit more three-dimensional to you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my longer piece of straight edge here. So now is a little tricky. We haven't done this part before. So up until now, everything that's been on this side of the vertical line has always gone over here. Everything that's been over on the left has always gone to the left. Well, now we need lines that are on our sidewalk, okay? Everybody's sidewalk has to have these lines. So follow really, really closely. This is when a lot of people get confused. So maybe you'll be like, well, maybe we'll just draw vertical lines because that's one of the lines we can draw. Well, hopefully this looks not okay to you. That does not look right. It kind of looks like your sidewalk is falling. Okay, you don't want vertical. Also, you can't just draw horizontal because remember, that's not really something that we're supposed to be doing, is drawing horizontal lines. And then some people forget what I'm about to teach and they just draw like slanted lines like this. Well, you have to make sure you're using your straight edge and going to the correct vanishing point, okay? You always have to use your straight edge to make sure your lines are straight. So here's what I'm going to do. My first line is going to come from this one actually right here. It's going to come from this one. So now so these lines over here are going to cross and go to this vanishing point over here, okay? Because that's the only other option I have. So watch. I have this vanishing point up here, move my straight edge, draw my line. So that first line kind of connected through this one. So let me do it again and hopefully you can see. I'm going to move it to where you can see. So I have my vanishing point over here. I've moved my straight edge up a little bit. And then watch. I draw my line. You can draw it all the way through to your vanishing point if you want. That's okay, but then you'll just have to come back and erase it, which is also okay. So let me do it again. Make sure I'm still connected. Move my straight edge up a little bit. make my line. See, so I move my straight edge. Always make sure you're still connected to this vanishing point right here. Draw my line. Move my straight edge, make sure I'm still connected. Draw my line. So again, you can draw all the way through. See how it's going to that opposite vanishing point? But when you're all done, then you'll have to erase, which is okay. That's fine. You'll just have a lot of erased lines. And so you're going to go all the way up until you run out of room. Do these sidewalk lines have to be evenly spaced? No. Just as long as they're going to the correct vanishing point. Now, as I get higher and higher up on this sidewalk, I'm going to run into that imaginary area where it's going to turn horizontal probably. So yeah, these lines towards the top are going to get pretty horizontal, and that's okay. But I'm still making sure I'm connected to that vanishing point. Super important. Okay? Let's do the other side real quick. So these over here, well, can't go vertical, can't go horizontal. The only option I have is to go to this vanishing point. So I have my straight edge to this vanishing point, line up my piece of paper down here, and my first one's going to come from that line. Move my straight edge, make sure I'm still connected, draw my line. Move it, make sure I'm still connected up here, draw my line. Perspective and these lines, it's kind of tedious, but that's what you have to do. Draw my line. Make sure, move it. Make sure I'm still connected. I'm going to fix mine a little bit, kind of moved. Draw my line. See how I'm still connected. Draw my line. And just keep going until you run out of room. Now what I didn't do, I didn't draw this all the way through to my curb. Okay, see how my curb is still empty? It doesn't have anything on it. Because then when you're done with these lines, now you'll come back and from each line, make a vertical line that goes straight down from each of those. I should be making sure my straight edge is lined up on my sketchbook. That's very important. So every single one, see how I'm making little straight lines going down. Oops, that one kind of messed up a little bit. Okay, so then you're going to want to do these little vertical lines on from each of those. I'm going to go ahead and erase this and get it out of the way. All right, so there's your sidewalk. There's the corner of your building. That's the start of our city. Also, what you're going to need is some type of street. So then some people make the mistake of, oh, we'll just do a diagonal. I'm drawing it dark so you guys can see it. A line like that. That's not correct. Because remember, we're standing here on the bottom of this corner at this corner. And these points are super far away from us, okay? So remember, all of our lines have to converge to this vanishing point. And from here, they're going to go down, okay? So for a street, I'm going to take my piece of paper, my straight edge, and see how I'm angling it here to my vanishing point. I always have to connect there. And then I just kind of brought it out a little bit. You can make it thin. You can make it wide. It's really up to you, but just make sure it's connected to this vanishing point. And then draw my line like that. And then what I would do if I were you, I would also add lines like in the middle of the street, like those dashes, just to kind of make it look more like a street. But again, I'm still connected to my vanishing point back there. And I then do my dashes that are in my street. And then I do another one over here. Whoop, look at that. Gotta make sure it's connected and held down right. Oh man, I'm gonna have to erase that. There's that. And then again, line it up. So now I'm going to do my dashed lines in the middle. It's lined up to my vanishing point. And there's my dashed lines. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this. So this teaching video is basically how to get started, your vertical line, your sidewalk, and your street. And then there's going to be probably a couple more videos for you to watch.